Time is incredibly valuable. You want to spend it learning, doing things. And if it's not happening, something needs to change. Make the best out of what you have and focus less on what you don't have. Breaking down ambitious goals into small, sizable chunks, make it small enough that you can go and do it and tick it off the list. I love to learn. I think that's one of the things that's driven me my whole life. And journalism is such a wonderful way to learn a lot of things in a very short amount of time. I really love stories and hearing people's stories. I think that's something that I love, understanding other people, understanding the world around me, and learning the world from the people that I meet. I think journalism or being in journalism gives you a carte blanche, which I think a lot of people don't understand. But if you're a journalist, you can go to almost anybody and be like, hey, what are you doing? What's your story? Even now, I sometimes dip my toes into journalism. I did documentary filmmaking, which I still absolutely love. Sometimes I can go to people and be like, you look very interesting. I'm a journalist. Can you tell me a story? Can I film you? If it's something interesting, I actually film. And maybe one day it will be a movie. What I took away from it is how to listen without prejudice. So not listen and want to respond, but more listen to understand. Form your own opinion, but not necessarily impose that opinion on the other person. As I said, learning quickly, because in journalism, if you're lucky to work in a field where you can look at different things and talk to different people, you have to do your research, you have to get up to speed, you have to be able to go kind of like, hey, we have this assignment, we have this thing. And I love it. I still love it. I think I still approach my day-to-day in a similar way, where if somebody tells me tomorrow, you have to be a product person in astrophysics or some sort of a field that I know nothing about, I'm gonna be like, okay, fine, I can get up to speed. I feel comfortable that I can learn and I can talk to people and understand and very quickly get up to speed and be able to do it. It's curiosity, and I think it's also probably love to connect with people and really empathize, connect on a deeper level, not just, hey, how are you, what's going on, but more like what's inside your soul. Like, I really want to understand what's happening, and then be able to tell the story or share whatever it is that they have to share, whatever it is that the world needs to see. I think for me, it simply means making the best out of what you have and going for it, also having fun along the way. I think the metaphor, what it means for me personally, or how I visualize it, is imagine you play cards no matter what game you play. Could be something simple, could be poker, and you dealt a set of cards. And I think if you're going to be sitting there like agonizing, like what cards do they have? And like, I didn't have the right cards. It's going to show on your face, ruin your mood, and actually you're going to miss the game, because whilst you're agonizing over your cards, people have already played and they moved on and you're just sitting here. So I think for me, a big thing is recognizing that we all have different opportunities. We all have different backgrounds, strengths, weaknesses. Some things can be changed. You can't learn math. But if you're not naturally inclined towards math, you're never going to be a genius. You're going to be good enough to do a lot of things, but this may not be your strength. I would really encourage everyone to tap into what is your strength? What am I good at? Where do I want to go? And then go for it. Play your cards, make the best out of what you have, and focus less on what you don't have. In my experience, this is what holds people back. Focusing on what I lack, what I've not been given, why is this person has this and I don't have it, I've never had this opportunity. It's very negative, unproductive thinking. It's much more productive to say, okay, this is great. What can I do with it? Okay, maybe I'm going to swap some cards. Maybe I'm going to play next hand, but like, how can I move forward? What can I do? That's how I try to live my life. I always try to remind myself, if I fall into moments of negativity, why don't I not have this opportunity to do X, Y, Z? I always remind myself, like, hang on, you have so much to be grateful for. And there's so many other things that you can do well that the other people cannot. So it's, find your own strengths, play your own strengths, find people who complement your strengths, work together as a team. I try to do it personally, professionally, and I always encourage people I work with or a mentor. I always try to say, what's your superpower? Or what do you want your superpower to be? Foster it, grow it. A very long-winded answer to playing the cards, but I think that's what it means for me. I think it's not, especially if you're building your own business, it's not an easy decision to move on or decide to do something different. And I think the decision to move on or do something different depends on where you are in your career, where you are in your life. But if I had to think of like a blanket approach to making decisions, I would probably say three things. One is performance. Do I bring my best self to work? Do I feel like I'm contributing the most I can? Am I passionate about what I do? Am I excited to do it? Am I like burning for it in a good way? And I can inspire others around me and I'm enjoying this? Or am I thinking, gosh, when is the weekend? I don't want to leave this holiday. This is so nice. And I think that's for me, it's like the first check. And if you're starting to fall into that latter category, I think it can change throughout time. At some point, you can be super passionate about it, but then maybe you've done what you wanted to do or the circumstances have changed and you're not feeling that anymore. I think it's really good to acknowledge it and be like, I'm not feeling this anymore. I'm not doing my best. I'm not bringing my best. I think for me, the first check. Second thing I would say is the people you work with. Are you inspired by them? Are you excited to work with them? Do you respect them? And I think if there's no respect, for whatever reason, or if you don't want to spend time with these people, then I think it's not a great place for you to be personally, because it always shows through the cracks if people don't want to be there. The third thing is a professional, personal growth. I think it's important throughout the career, but especially early on. Is it a place where you can really grow? The first 5-10 years of your professional experience are really forming. And they're either going to set you up to go like this, or they're going to set you up to go like that, or they're going to set you up to go like this. So it's really important to be in an environment where you feel like you can learn and you have the right opportunities, or you can create your own opportunities to learn. Before making my next move, I sense check. When I see opportunities coming my way, I think, how am I doing in my current role? Do I enjoy working with the people I work with and do I respect them? How am I learning? Am I learning enough? Am I progressing? Am I getting where I want to be? Or do I feel like I'm plateauing? I'm a product person, so you're probably not going to be surprised by my answer, but it's all about prioritization. And I think you really need to have intentional prioritization. What's important for you in your life? What's important for you in your career? Where do you want to spend your time and effort? First of all, is consciously prioritizing, okay, I could be doing all these things. What's genuinely important? Second, I think people are capable of much more than they give themselves credit for. And I think it's quite easy to say, oh, but I'm already doing this. How on earth would I do something else? And I'm sure even looking at you, I can imagine how someone in your position could say, oh my gosh, I have my own business, I have a family, I have a little baby on the way, like there's no way I should be doing this podcast. I just don't have time for this. If that's what you tell yourself, that's how it's going to be. But the reality is, if you tell yourself a different story where you say, I can carve out time for this, and you prioritize it, you can make it. Time will pass anyways. There is no need to be afraid of how much time or energy something is going to take. It's important to say, is this important for me? If it is, I should go for it. The biggest thing that being a founder taught me is how to think through the founder lens and the executive lens quite early on in my career. When I started my own business, I was not yet a C-level exec. Well, I was not in the executive team. But I think by proxy of doing it, it actually really taught me responsibility. It taught me looking holistically across the entire business as opposed to just looking at my project on my to-do list. And I found it incredibly helpful all throughout my career, having that skill set, being able to speak to a senior executive, being able to speak to the founder and understand where they're coming from and empathize with where they're coming from and be able to speak their language. I think that's probably one of the things that I consider to be one of my strengths. And I don't think it would have happened unless I had my own business in the past. What I find sometimes frustrating when you work with more corporate environments or bigger companies, a lot of the times you say, hey, let's do a podcast. And then people says, oh no, we cannot do a podcast. Here are the 50 reasons why we cannot do it. And I always think, actually we can, right? You just need a microphone, a recording device, sit down and do it. And I think that gritty mindset, like ability to make more with less and being open to doing it is an incredibly valuable skill. So I always encourage my team and all the people that I work with, I always say, if you want to say no to something, which sounds like a good idea, because of constraints, think about it twice. And if you say no to something, then you have to say yes to something else. If you just say, no, we cannot do it, you're being a drag. Nobody wants to work with someone who's a drag. And it's not helpful, it's not moving us forward. So being an entrepreneur, being a founder, I think is a fantastic thing. I personally believe that everyone should try it at least once. Folks who are early on in their careers, who don't yet have the responsibility for the family, children, or mortgage, people who have less responsibility and they have the time to really go for it and try it. It doesn't mean that it has to be a life path, but I think nowadays you have hackathons, you have great AI tools that allow you to build products very quickly, get them to market and try it. You have social media. Like there's so many opportunities to be an entrepreneur and founder in different ways. I think it's almost dumb not to try it because you're missing so much learning, and it's the best way to learn early on. I would encourage everyone to do it. Early on in my life and career, probably for the first 15 years of my career, I very ruthlessly focused on work, and it was an intentional decision. I wanted to do it. I wasn't forced into doing it. It was my personal choice. I really wanted to learn. And what it taught me is actually I had to make a lot of priority decisions or choices where I'd say, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to do that. Coming out of it, and I think also kind of growing up or becoming older, I thought, oh, actually, I haven't experienced certain things that I see my friends experiencing that I would have loved to have in my life. It's both, love life, family, personal growth, rest. There are so many personal interests. It took me a good few years to allow myself to be a bit more holistic about myself and my life. Now what I do, call it the wheel of life. I did not come up with it. I think I read it somewhere. The proper methodology might be different from what I'm doing. But my interpretation of it is I do maybe like once a year, once every, 18 months. I usually do it on a long haul flight. I sit down and I think, how's it going for me? I check in on 4 key areas. 1, my health, like how am I doing on my health? 2, how do I feel in my relationships and my family? 3, career and money. How's that going for me? And 4, my personal growth. So I'm not just talking professional growth, but also me as a human being, as a person, with other interests and love for life. Am I giving myself the time and space to explore it? And that's why I kind of it's more like a square, but imagine that it's not a square, it's a wheel. I think in perfect world, I always try to make sure that it's somewhat balanced, or if it's not balanced, I make an intentional decision to say, actually, right now, health is more important for me. So I'm going to spend more of my time here and maybe less of my time in my personal growth. But then comes the next cycle, I probably want to reverse it because overall, I want to feel like I'm living that fulfilled, complete life. Having seen myself not doing this versus doing it, and having seen other people do it versus not do it, I actually think that thinking about it holistically makes you a better person. I think it's better for the long term because otherwise it's quite easy to burn out or get some issues that are actually hard to overcome. And I'd also say that it's important to choose, in that wheel of life, choose things that are important personally for you. Because maybe somebody would say, and I think a lot of founders that I've worked with, quite a lot of them, they're very, very driven by their careers. They're very driven by what they're building. And I think for them, that could take over a big chunk of that wheel. And it's absolutely fine because they're passionate about it. They love it. It feeds them. But if somebody else wants to have a family, then I think it's silly for them to not tap into that part of their life and always focus on something else. I think it's good to be balanced and find your own balance. I try to always put my team first. I think as a leader, it's not always easy. What it means for me is really similar to any interpersonal relationship. I don't think it's that different at work to what it is in my personal life. I try to think, 1, am I listening to my team, or am I listening to people that I work with? Am I listening and am I acting on what I'm hearing? And that's the first thing. Have I created a safe enough environment where I can give and receive direct feedback? And I think in a work environment, it's so important where very quickly with the people that you work with, you can be like, hey, this was great. This was not so good. And you can talk about it and have that conversation without pride being hurt or people putting their wall up. It goes both ways, of course. And I think that's why I'm saying giving and receiving feedback. I think you can only do it if you've created enough trust and psychological safety. Otherwise, especially if you're in a position of leadership, people may not feel safe enough to tell you what they think and what they feel, or what they think about what you've done. And I think it's important for a high-performing team to create that safe space where someone can come and say, hey, I think you're making a mistake and here's why. That's why I think combination of psychological safety, but also listening and being like, right, I agree with you, or I don't agree with you, and here's why. 3, and it's kind of a continuation of what I was discussing, is having that open dialogue. So again, when you can converse both ways and have that conversation. And I think 4, I would say what's really important to me, and it's just my personal management style, is to really try to understand where does each person on my team or each person that I work with, what drives them and what do they want to do when they grow up? Where do they want to head in their life and in their career? And based on that, how can I support them to move in that direction? And I don't just mean professionally. It could be that someone says, hey, actually, I want to have a family. I want to spend more time with my children. And then I think for me, it would also be a signal to say, right, I'm not going to deprioritize this person from the team, but I'm going to think about more intentionally, how can I create an environment for them where they have a better maybe work-life balance, where I give them more flexibility so they can be their best at work because they're achieving what they want to achieve personally. And similar in a professional environment, if someone comes and says, hey, like, I want to be the CEO in, 10 years, be like, great. What are you missing? What have you not had exposure to? Okay, maybe you've not had exposure to, finance or ops, and you would need to have it to be a CEO. Are there any initiatives of introductions to help that person learn? Similar to communication, honesty goes both ways. So if someone doesn't have a path or they don't know what they want to be doing, it's much harder to support them. But I think at least having that conversation and saying, hey, what do you want to do? How can I support you? I always integrate it into my conversations with my team to make sure that I continuously help them grow and help them be the best version of themselves. And for me, one of my big pillars of my personal approach to living is time is incredibly valuable. You want to spend it learning, doing things. And if it's not happening, something needs to change. It's great to have people around you, mentors, managers, who can help you maybe point some of your blind spots or ask you questions that make you reflect on your life. So that's why I think I aspire to be a person who does that for other people. I think it's actually the same for men and women. At least in my experience, I've not had a hugely different experience managing men and women. People have similar challenges, especially once you have that safe environment where you can really mentor someone. If there's no safe environment, it's really hard to mentor someone because you can't get inside, you can't really understand what they want. For me, the biggest thing is a lot of the times, if it's not working, is because the person doesn't really know what they want or where they want to head. So it's this ambiguity around what you want to be doing. What is it you want to get from me? Quite often, you get a message on LinkedIn, or a friend messages you saying, hey, I have this friend who really wants to speak to you. They want to learn from your experience. They want you to mentor them. Then you get on a call or you meet them in a coffee shop and you say, okay, like, what do you want to know? I go, well, like, I just want to be inspired. I want to learn. And I think it could be quite ambiguous. In my experience, this holds people back because they haven't thought about it in advance. What do I want to get out of this mentorship or situation? Or they're scared to be honest. They're scared or shy or just not very comfortable to be honest and say, okay, I want your job. How do I do this? Be XYZ, or I want to achieve XYZ. How do I do that? I think it's clarity of purpose and really having that purpose and being brave enough to articulate it. Even if it sounds crazy, usually people who are mentors, they're the people who can take it, who can take the crazy and be like, okay, right, you want to be a CEO of Microsoft. Okay, fine. Let's talk about this. How can we get you there? How can we get you closer to being there? Second thing I would say is fear. A lot of times in these open conversations, someone can say it, they have this ambition or dream, but then they're actually scared or they don't believe enough in themselves to be able to go and pursue it. In these instances, what I always do with people I coach or work with, I say, let's start making a little list. I'm a big fan of making lists. If you see me outside of this interview, I always walk around with an iPad and I take handwritten notes. Let's make a list. If you have this ambitious big goal, let's break it down into smaller achievable things. To be the CEO of Microsoft, what do you need? You need experience, you need charisma, you need okay, for all these things, what are some of the sub goals that we can create for you? Okay, and now to start moving towards these sub-goals, what is a very achievable thing? And it could be as simple as, okay, I don't know, to be the CEO of Microsoft, I need to develop my charisma. To develop my charisma, I need to do more public speaking. Okay, I'm going to sign up for Toastmakers session next weekend, and I'm going to go. And I think a lot of it is breaking down ambitious goals into small, sizable chunks. And then once you have these small, little, sizable chunks, actually go and do it. Make it small enough that the fear is not so high that it's paralyzing. Make it small enough that you can go and do it and tick it off the list and be like, oh, I've done it. I'm one step closer. Maybe there are another 100 million steps, but I'm one step closer. And I think the more that you do it, the more you build confidence in being able to do it, and the easier it gets. Where I see people fall down is either they don't want to create that plan, they want to go straight for that big, huge goal without necessarily doing all the legwork, or they never start. You know, I've seen it where like we would create this little list with micro goals, and then next time you check in, you're like, okay, did you sign up for this Toastmakers thing? Did you go? No, I did not go. I'm not prepared enough. I'm gonna do something else. Over time, that lack of confidence or follow through impacts how you feel about yourself and how far you can go. The third thing that can hold people back is working for or with people who don't respect and value them. And I think it's a really big one. What I mean is, you know, we're all different, and people are people at work as well. So it could be that you may be working for an amazing company, but actually like your boss you just don't get on. And maybe you will never get on. And of course you can try hard and work hard, but there's a chance that they will never see you for who you are. They will never play to your strengths, or the role that you're in is not the right role. So you can be very capable, very talented, but it's just not the right role for you. You're never going to be the best in that role. And I think in these moments, it's really important to recognize the mismatch between either your capability and what you're doing, or the mismatch between I want to go further, but the people that I work around me don't see my potential, they don't recognize it, they don't want to help me grow. And I think in these instances, just like intentional check. Is this the right place for me? Yes, I think especially early on in one's career. It depends on the situation. I would probably say definitely not a week, not a month. I would say 6 to 18 months would be my view. Because I think if you make the decision too quickly, it could be that actually you just not built the trust, or you've not gotten to know the people around you, or you're not good enough at your role to grow in that role. But I think when you get to the 12, 18-month mark, if you work hard and if you've done everything that you had to do and you're still not seeing that reciprocity from the other side, you're not seeing respect, I think it's a good time to sense check and be like, hold on, if I'm going to stay here longer, what's going to happen? Probably after another 18 months, I may lose confidence in my abilities because every day I'm being told that I'm not good enough or my work is not good enough. One more thing that I thought about is you need to have a plan. Quite often what I see is people don't have an intention for their mentors. They kind of just come to be mentored because they want to meet people who are more senior, but without a clear intent. And I think it's a waste of time on both sides. I almost think it's disrespectful to the mentor because you're not using their time wisely. But also you need to have an intent where you want to go in your life, where you want to go in your career. Because if you have that, you can create your own opportunities. You can ask your managers or your mentors or your peers for support to get there. If you don't have a path, if you don't have an intention, and you're just kind of bobbing from one side to the other, it's really hard to make choices. It's really hard to move forward. So again, something that I always tell everyone who tells me, I want you to mentor me, or maybe I should get a mentor. I always tell them, what do you want? Why? Like, write it down, think about it. Don't wait for somebody else to come and say, here's how I'm going to build your career, and this is your curriculum for the next 5 years. You have to do the legwork. No one else is going to do it for you. People may help you. They may not help you. But you have to have agency over your career, over your life. Do not expect someone else to just come and build it for you. I think I would reinvent childcare. I work a lot with women. I don't think that the system that we have generally globally, or especially, we live in the UK, but I think not just in the UK, I think it's a worldwide problem where childcare I don't think it's been built with women working full-time in mind. I think it's been shoehorned into being that. And I think discovering better ways to do it And I don't want to solutionize on the go. I have some ideas, but I think the whole premise of a hackathon is helping people find new innovative ways to do it. I believe strongly there are better ways to empower women to be fully present at work, to do as much as colleagues who don't have children do. But I don't think these solutions is just extending nursery hours. I think there are much better ways to do it, or hiring a nanny. I think there are much better ways to do it. We're just not talking about them. We're not thinking about them. It's not done at the governmental level. So if I had like a carte blanche and I was the president or the prime minister, I think that would be one thing that I would put on the agenda. And I would say half of our population, if not more, are women. We want the economy to grow. We need them to be able to feel good and contribute and not have to change their lives or retrospectively fit their lives into the system that exists. How can we make it better for them? If you're starting now, with all the information that's available to us, with all the technology available to us, with all the networks available to us, how would we design it? We're talking about women, but it applies to working parents of both genders. It's just, I think, still, fortunately, unfortunately, a lot of the childcare burden sits with women, or even, pregnancy, early motherhood. It requires women more just by the nature of it. I would love to redesign it. I think we can do it better. I'm very privileged to work for a female-founded business. And this is actually the first time in my career where I work for a female-founded business where I'm not the founder. And also the first time in my career where I work in a company where a big part of the workforce are women. I find it interesting and inspiring. At Beauty Pie, we manufacture our own products. It's fascinating to see that whole chain. Beauty Pie is a beauty members club. As a product person, I do a lot of research. I do a lot of customer interviews. My team do a lot of customer research. And having access to that community and the quality of the community and the kind of people that, like, how much they love Beauty Pie, the change that it's making in their life, even though it's beauty, which could be said somewhat superficial, but the change that it's making maybe to their skin, to their hair, and as a result to their confidence is immense. And I think that change translates into love for the brand. It really inspires me to work somewhere where we make a change and I can see people reacting to it in a very tangible way. Of course, it's probably the first thing, my team. I'm very fortunate at Beauty Pie. We have an amazing executive team that I'm privileged to be a member of. I can learn every day from my peers. It's not always easy. We don't always have the same opinion, but being in that environment where I can look to different people and see different viewpoints and feel that respect, feel that learning, really hugely drives me. And of course, product UX team. I think that's my big heart. I love the team. I think I love the vibe in the team. I learn from them every day. And I just enjoy coming to work. I enjoy spending time there. And I'm excited about the things that we're doing because we're doing them together. I would really love to find a way to apply my knowledge, my skills, my network to a better, bigger cause. So my entire career, I've spent working for for-profit organizations and companies, and I still am passionate about the private sector. I will continue doing this. I may go back to being a founder at some point, not in the immediate future, but I don't write it off for myself. Personally, I think I would love to do something bigger as well, which is like, what is that thing that can be done to the world to make it a better place? I'm passionate about social mobility, especially social mobility for young adults, teenagers, young adults. And I would really love to understand how I can leverage what I know and my network to do good without obsessing over how much growth or revenue it's going to bring, and more thinking about what impact is it going to have on the society, how it's going to change people's lives, without expecting financial uplift from it.